Imagine you are at payment 96 of 120 for public service loan forgiveness. You work for a public hospital, a city agency, a public school, or a nonprofit. You have made career choices around PSLF for years. Then the question is no longer just whether you made the right payment. It becomes whether your employer is willing and able to sign the form that proves your job still counts. That is the new practical risk borrowers are trying to understand before July 1, 2026. PSLF has always followed three things: your loans, your payments, and your qualifying public service employment. But the employer certification form is now becoming the pressure point. This does not mean every public worker is about to lose PSLF. It does not mean you should panic quit your job. It does mean that if you are counting on PSLF, your record-keeping and employer certification process deserve attention right now. Here is the simple version. PSLF forgives the remaining balance on eligible federal direct loans after 120 qualifying monthly payments made under a qualifying repayment plan while working full-time for a qualifying employer. The key word is while. PSLF is not just a payment program. It is a payment plus employment program. That means a month usually has to pass several tests. You had the right kind of loan. You were in the right kind of repayment status. You made or received credit for a qualifying payment. And you were working full-time for an eligible public service employer during that month. For many borrowers, the employer part has felt pretty straightforward. Government employers usually qualify. Many 501c3 nonprofits qualify. Some other nonprofits qualify if they provide certain public services. You submit the PSLF form. Your employer confirms your dates and full-time status. Your payment count updates. But the July 1st issue adds a new layer. The Education Department has been moving toward revised PSLF and TEPSLF certification language. In a June 18th Federal Register notice, the department requested emergency approval from the Office of Management and Budget for a revised certification form. The requested change would add an employer attestation, under penalty of perjury, that the employer has not engaged in activity with a substantial illegal purpose on or after July 1st, 2026. That phrase is the center of the fight. It comes from a final PSLF rule that is scheduled to take effect on July 1. The rule creates a way for the department to determine that an otherwise qualifying employer is no longer qualifying because of certain conduct. Plaintiffs challenging the rule filed a notice with the court on June 22nd, arguing that the form change shows the issue is immediate and asking the court to act before July 1st. So what does this mean for a borrower in plain English? Think of PSLF like a punch card with 120 boxes. Every qualifying month fills one box. The borrower is trying to prove each box should count. The employer certification form is the receipt that helps prove the job side of the box. Before, HR was mostly confirming facts like where you worked, when you worked there, and whether you were full-time. Under the revised language, HR may also be asked to make a sworn statement about the employer's conduct after July 1st. That is a much bigger ask than confirming employment dates. For a large public agency, school district, hospital system, or nonprofit, the person signing the form may not feel comfortable making that legal attestation without guidance from counsel or senior leadership. Even if the employer believes it qualifies, a frontline HR office may pause, escalate, or delay signing. And that is why the risk is practical, not just political or legal. A borrower may not be in control of whether an authorized employer official is ready to sign the new form. If the form is delayed, the borrower's count may not update quickly. If an employer refuses to sign, the borrower may have to use alternate documentation or wait for agency guidance. If an employer is actually challenged or disqualified, future qualifying months could be affected. If this kind of student loan explanation helps you make calmer money decisions, consider subscribing. We focus on the mechanics behind debt, savings, investing, and financial policy without the hype. Now, let's separate what is known from what is not known. What is known is that PSLF still exists. The basic 120 payment path still exists. The employment certification process still matters. The department requested emergency approval for revised certification language before the July 1 effective date. And lawsuits are pending that could affect whether the rule is blocked, vacated, narrowed, or allowed to proceed. What is not known is how quickly OMB will act, whether the court will intervene before July 1, how the department will apply the rule in real cases, and how individual employers will respond when asked to sign the revised certification. That uncertainty is why the best borrower response is not panic, it is paperwork. Start with your records. Log in to your federal student aid account and download or save your loan details, PSLF payment counts, employment history, and any PSLF form status pages. If your servicer shows payment history or billing history, save that too. The goal is to create your own file so you are not relying only on a website dashboard that can change or be hard to access later. Next, look at your certification timeline. If you have months of eligible employment that have not been certified, submit a PSLF form as soon as you reasonably can. Federal Student Aid has generally recommended certifying employment regularly, often yearly, so borrowers can track progress toward 120. That habit matters more when rules and forms are changing. If you recently changed jobs, left an employer, moved from one agency to another, or had a past nonprofit job you never certified, do not ignore those months. PSLF credit is built month by month. A missing employer signature from 3 years ago can become a headache when staff changes, organizations merge, or old records become harder to find. Then check your payment count carefully. Do not just look at the headline number. Look for months marked qualifying, eligible, but employment not certified, ineligible, or needing employer certification. The exact labels can vary, but the idea is the same. You want to know which months are already locked in through certification and which months still need proof. Also ask a quiet, practical HR question, not a dramatic one. Something like, does our organization have a process for signing PSLF forms after July 1, and who is authorized to sign them? That question does not require HR to give you legal advice. It simply asks whether they are ready for the form process. If you work for a large employer, HR may not know the answer immediately. They may need to check with benefits, legal, payroll, or a central office. That is normal. The earlier you ask, the less likely you are to discover the problem 2 days before you need a signature. If your employer hesitates to sign, document the communication. Keep emails, keep names, and dates. Do not assume hesitation means your employer is disqualified. It may just mean the employer has not received internal instructions. A delay is not the same thing as a denial. The biggest misunderstanding to avoid is thinking that PSLF is only about your personal payment behavior. Borrowers often think, I paid on time, so the month counts. But PSLF also asks, who employed you that month? That employer connection is why certification is so important. Another misunderstanding is thinking a qualifying employer is permanently safe forever. Historically, many borrowers treated employer eligibility as stable once confirmed. The new rule is trying to add a conduct-based disqualification concept for activity after July 1, 2026. That creates a future-looking risk. It does not automatically erase every past certified month just because there is controversy around an employer. A third misunderstanding is assuming that social media panic is the same as official action. A lawsuit filing is not the same as a court order. A proposed or revised form is not the same as an employer disqualification. A scary headline is not the same as your own payment count changing. So what should you watch next? First, watch whether OMB approves the revised PSLF certification form and when that approval happens. The department requested approval by June 26, just days before the July 1st effective date. Second, watch the court case. The plaintiffs have asked the federal court to act before July 1. A court could block the rule, vacate it, decline to act before the deadline, or issue a narrower ruling. Each outcome could change the practical steps for borrowers and employers. Third, watch federal student aid guidance. Borrowers need to know what the final form says, how electronic signatures will work, what happens if an employer refuses to sign the new attestation, and what alternate documentation may be accepted. Fourth, watch your employer's response. Some employers may issue clear internal guidance quickly. Others may pause signing until they understand the attestation. The borrower experience could differ a lot depending on where someone works. Here is the CALM checklist. Save your records. Certify any uncertified employment. Review your payment counts. Ask HR who will sign PSLF forms after July 1. Keep copies of every submission and message. Follow official updates rather than rumors. And avoid making a major job decision based only on speculation. Changing jobs can affect income, benefits, retirement contributions, commute, health insurance, and career path. If you are close to 120 payments, the stakes can be high. If you are early in the PSLF path, the trade-offs are different. Either way, a job switch should be based on confirmed facts, not a viral post. The core idea is simple. PSLF is a long path where paperwork is part of the money strategy. The July 1st certification risk does not mean every borrower is in danger. It means the employer form may become more complicated at exactly the point where borrowers need clarity. Your best defense is not panic. It is a clean record, current certifications, and a clear line of communication with your employer. If you are pursuing PSLF, comment with the part that feels most confusing right now. Is it the 120 payment count, employer certification, repayment plan rules, or what happens if HR will not sign? Your questions can help shape the next explainer.